step right up and get your tickets for another moment in gaming history. Hey guys, welcome to another episode of Moments in Gaming History. What I have for you today is something that's kind of near and dear to my heart and part of my childhood, and for many of you, I suspect it's part of your childhood as well, since it dominated a fairly large era of the early 70s through close to the early 2000s, and that's the arcade scene. But I bet most of us don't know the very first cabinet that started the craze and started it all, and oddly enough, it had our old friends Nolan Bushnell and Ted Dabney involved in it as well. Now, they had initially started working and doing pinball machines in lieu of actual video games in arcades because that was the big craze at the time. But they wanted to start doing something different, so they worked up a game called Computer Space. Now, they came out with this in 1971. What this was a video game with a spaceship on it that would fly around and you would shoot at these UFOs. If you got enough points, you would actually proceed and get a free turn and continue on in your play session. This was not a two-player game, it was a single-player experience, and it was a derivative of a game known as Space War that actually was made in 1962. Now, they were having trouble getting that game ported over to the hardware that they wanted to work it on, so they made their own hardware and their own casing for it, and then got it into the arcade. Now, the way this cabinet looked is it was made almost entirely of fiberglass. So you had red and blue and yellow and all these crazy colors of fiberglass, and it looked very streamlined and aerodynamic, almost like it could kind of take off, or it was like an alien kind of construction, everything except for the CRT that was inside it. The other thing that was a little bit strange about it for most modern gamers or anyone that's been into an arcade from the mid-70s on is it didn't actually have an arcade stick. It just had a series of buttons that would turn you, allow you to fire, and let you apply boost and things like that. Now, since this was single player, it only had the one feature on it. Later on, they would actually make ones that would actually have more than one player, and I believe they actually made some that actually had an arcade stick a little bit later on in its lifespan. Now, this was also potentially rumored to be one of the first games that ever actually got ported to multiple different computer installations. Like I said, they'd had trouble with it before, but once they got it knocked out on the hardware, they worked out some of the bugs and they were able to port it to more devices, which is actually kind of cool. This was essentially the game that started the video game craze of all things. Once this started, the floodgates opened up and more people wanted a piece of this action. Then there became a strong modding scene and things like that for the original arcade machines, and everything developed until we started getting to home arcade consoles, which wouldn't really fully take dominance over the arcade until the late 90s realistically, as the graphical power of consoles started to basically surpass what we were actually putting in the arcades, and people kind of just stopped going to arcades, preferring the more home experience to the arcade experience. But what do you think about this early entry into the arcade market? Do you think it's actually kind of cool? Do you think you might actually want to try to find one day? What's your impression of it? Have you actually played one? Have you actually owned one? Let me know in the comments. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Hit that notification bell. Until next time, happy gaming.